We've been told for over 50 years that in 1969 NASA sent astronauts to the moon. But what if I told you the moon landing was fake? Let's dive into why this might be one of the greatest deceptions in history. First of all, let's talk about the flag. You've all seen that iconic footage of the American flag waving on the moon. But wait, how's the flag moving if there's no air on the moon? No atmosphere means no wind, yet the flag waves. Strange, isn't it? Now let's look at the lighting. Experts have pointed out that the shadows in the moon landing footage don't make sense. Multiple light sources, but guess what? There's only one light source on the moon, the sun, which means they use studio lights. And here's where it gets really interesting. Ever heard of Stanley Kubrick? Some say he was hired by NASA to direct the entire moon landing hoax using Hollywood-level special effects. His movie 2001: A Space Odyssey came out just 1 year before the moon landing. Coincidence? I don't think so. Those astronauts look like they're bouncing in slow motion. But what if that's not low gravity? What if they just slowed down the film? Classic movie trick. And here's another thing. A lot of the original moon landing footage, they're gone. The tapes went missing. The most important achievement in human history, and NASA loses the original footage. What are they hiding? The technology they had back then wasn't enough to get to the moon and back safely. But what was advanced? Special effects. The moon landing wasn't just a giant leap for mankind. It was a giant leap for Hollywood. So, was it all an elaborate hoax to keep us distracted and make us believe in the impossible? You decide. But remember, the truth is out there, if you're willing to question everything. Like and follow for more hidden truths they don't want you to know.
Let's talk about this, because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does, I remember my parents waking me up and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. So you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, but what we saw was we all were gathered around the old curved top radio and listened.
Talking about, you know, how many feet we were going to the left and right, and then I said, contact light, engine stop.
It was
and
exciting.
a few other things, and then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Man, how about that?
That was very exciting.
Not a bad line.
Yeah, yeah. This was. So, were you self-conscious about all the? I mean, the entire Earth, you know, is watching and listening to everything that you guys do. Were you self-conscious at all about what am I going to say? What if I say something that's kind of stupid? It's in the history books forever, like I want a cookie, or you know.
You got it. You got it.
You're worried then.
We were focused. You know, I was afraid that Neil might say. Hey, you better go out first and, you know, think up a couple of lines to say when you step on the moon.
Right, right. So that's a huge responsibility.
You
now.
bet, right.
You were not the first man to walk on the moon, but you've actually talked about this. You were the first man to relieve himself on the moon. Is that true?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Well, no.
This is... You want to get to the...
But not on the moon. You know, you don't want to...
Yeah, you didn't unzip. Yeah,
you
right.
do not want to unzip.
Right,
no,
right. That would be stupid.
But we got a little device that... you know,
I don't want to know about the device.
The scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest. It didn't happen. It could have been scary. Circuit breaker.
We haven't physically ever touched down on the moon. What we've been told is all allegedly a lie. Even outer space we still haven't visited, as there's a invisible barrier surrounding our globe, and they call it the firmament. And apparently beyond this firmament there is water. There's documents that provide evidence for this, and the government allegedly launched up into the atmosphere to just test like the reaction. Well, that's what information we're fed to take in. There's a theory that states that it was all an attempt to crack the so-called firmament. And hear this is a massive coincidence. The program was called Operation Fishbowl. You can find proof for that online. Isn't that crazy? The theory goes on to say that when looking at stars in the sky, they seem to shine through a liquid-like substance. Regardless if you use your eyes or zoom in using a camera, people have come forward making this claim. Several individuals have also identified rockets launched into the sky, hitting an invisible ceiling, curving across the sky as if there was a barrier.
They did fake the moon landing. That's a fact, whether people realize it or not. Today, with 54-year better rocket designs and computer designs, the farthest that NASA can send a rocket with an astronaut into space is 1,000th the distance to the moon. That's why they're sending mannequins to orbit the moon that can't even land because they would die from the radiation. Most people don't know, which is above the Earth, starting at about 1,000 miles and extending about 30,000 miles, is a huge band of radiation that astronauts would have to go through to the moon and through again back. The technology for an astronaut to go through it to the moon and back and survive has yet to be invented. They had 1/8 of an inch of aluminum. Now, when you get a dental x-ray, they use 1/4 inch lead. And so that's for 1/24 of a second. They would be in that for an hour to an hour and a half going to the moon and an hour to an hour and a half coming back.
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that. Hit
Okay,
that.
we'll bleep it. We'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's
it.
genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV, too. There's an 80-foot gorilla. He's running around kidnapping white chicks. You should check it out. 1972 was the last time a human being has been through the Van Allen radiation belt. 1972. That's the last time. There's been only 7 trips ever that human beings have ever gone past 400 miles. Every single space station mission, every space shuttle, every satellite, all of those are inside the protective Van Allen radiation belts, which start at 1,000 miles. They go from 1,000 miles to, depending on who you ask, if you ask NASA, 24,000 miles. If you ask James Van Allen, the guy who discovered it, it's 67,000 miles of intense radiation that's in a gigantic donut band that covers around the Earth. Now, even if you got outside of that band, you have to deal with solar cycles. There's the apex of a 20-year solar cycle was between 1969 and 1972. All the time when these guys are making those missions. Any one of those guys out there in those tiny little aluminum shielded crafts would have been killed instantly during any solar flare.
Why fake it?
Thank you, Carl.
Why not fake it?
You should open with that.
If you look at any of the footage online, it looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. If you look at the videos, it looks ridiculous and dumb. You know why? Because in 1969, nobody anticipated that we were going to have VCRs and the internet. We were going to be able to watch that. They wanted to win the Cold War. The Soviet Union's had over 10 firsts in space. First man in space, first woman in space, first they had everything. First dog in space. They had first satellite. They were so much more advanced than the Americans were. But the Americans were more advanced in trickery. And that's what they did. They figured out a way to fake it. That's why when Neil Armstrong got back, first of all, he went insane. They went into a deep depression. So did Buzz Aldrin. He became a huge alcoholic. They gave no interviews. Neil Armstrong still to this day will not give interviews. He gave one speech that he gave at the 25th anniversary of the moon landing. And this is what he said in front of America's best honor students. He said, "We have here amongst us America's best and brightest." And the quote was, "You will achieve many great things if you could peel away one of truth's hidden layers." That's a speech this guy gives standing in front of the top honor students of the country. Not, "I went to the moon." He doesn't say that. He gives this cryptic speech. Now, Bill Clinton, in page 100, I think it's 156 of his book, My Life, he gives this story about how when he was a kid, he was working with this carpenter. And this carpenter said, "You know, I don't believe man landed on the moon." It was 3 months after the moon landing. And he said, "I thought that guy was ridiculous." He said, "You know what? I don't believe anything those TV fellows show you." He said, "After 8 years in the White House, I thought maybe that guy was ahead of his time."
Wow.
This is in Bill Clinton's autobiography.
Wow.
This is in his book. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way. It's impossible today. China wants to go back to the moon. They don't even have a clue how to do it. They're going to try to get there in 2020. America thinks we could possibly go back in 2017. All of the hard data, the telemetry data, 14,000 reels is missing. No one can find it. What the telemetry data is, that's the binary data, the ones and the zeros that show the distance between the command module and the Earth during every step of the way on the way to the moon and back, which you can't fake. They don't have that. They can't find it, which you would think would be in a locked golden vault in the Smithsonian. But no, they can't find it. Well, they say, well, you know, they placed laser reflectors on the moon. You could shoot a laser beam. That's proof. Well, it's not proof because the Russians did it twice with unmanned probes. the Russians also collected space samples and samples of the moon.
Very amazing, and I've had these guys on. And
Which guys?
You know, the different guys on the internet that are behind.
There's a lot of guys, and I've debated that one guy, that Phil Plait from Battlestar. I clown that guy.
The guy that gets in every astronaut's face.
Well, that guy's a crazy Christian, and he's nuts. Which is, you know what, you have to be a little crazy to look that deep into this theory, because it seems so solid. We went to the moon. It seems so solid until you look into it.
But here's the only thing. We can't keep anything quiet in this country.
It doesn't matter. No one's keeping it quiet.
Everybody
you can go
at
look
NASA,
at it.
The astronauts, I mean,
those guys are afraid of their lives. Gus Grisham, the pilot who was the guy who died on the launch pad along with two of his friends, he was a public critic of NASA. He put a lemon, he hung it on the simulator, put a lemon and put it on a hanger and hung it. He was dead in that same cockpit. He died like 2 weeks later. He burned to death inside of that. They were terrified. This is a matter of life and death. These guys were in the middle of a huge Cold War between Russia, and they wanted to show that America had technological superiority. The race to the moon landing, all that stuff is not about going to the moon and collecting things. It's about military superiority. It's about the ability to do things with military technology. All that stuff they use for NASA, all the stuff they use for the stealth bomber, the space shuttle, all those missions, it's not for philanthropy missions. That's to fuel the military-industrial complex. The machine behind this is all the military. And getting to the moon first is making a statement that we have military technological superiority over Russia, and that's what they did. If you look into it, man, the more you look into it, look, every photograph of the moon looks goofy. There's intersecting shadows that show more than one light source, and you could try to explain any one of these things away, which many people do. But the problem is when you look at them all together.
Joe, we're not on for 10 hours. Man cow.
The moon landing one's my favorite.
Really?
I think with the moon landing, it's way more likely that we went to the moon, but that some of the footage is fake. Some squirrely footage. You ever see the video of them jumping around? It looks like they're on trampolines.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Watch this. Look at this. Watch these guys bounce up in the air. It's like they're on some sort of wire, like they're being yanked up into the air.
Oh, yeah.
If you watch, like, sometimes they're falling down, and when they're falling down, it looks like they get yanked back up. Like, homeboy falls down, and then it looks like he gets yanked back up. Look at this. Whoops.
Oh, he did not. That is not him standing up.
Yeah, what is this?
That's not him standing up. You can't stand up like that.
Right, but you're on the moon, okay?
No,
so you realize you're in 1/6 Earth's gravity.
But there was nothing to make him go like this.
Exactly.
Right? You can't. You have to turn to your base to get up. You can't look at. There's nothing on the ground. How's he going to get the momentum?
He's getting yanked up. Like he would have super abs. He would have to be like a break
you
dancer.
can't because. Okay, maybe a breakdancer. Maybe a breakdancer. But you can't get up without putting a base down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really weird. I never saw
weird.
it. And he only had 1 foot on the ground there, too.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Look at this. Watch.
So he stood up like...
Look at that. It's ridiculous.
He can't do it.
What? His right foot's down, his left foot's up, and he just goes straight up in the air. It is crazy.
That's fake.
But I've never been in 1/6 Earth's gravity, and neither of you.
No,
so maybe it's
Joe,
easier
it's
to
fake,
do.
Dude. Can't stand up like that.
You think that's fake?
That
Ben
video
Askren says we never went to the moon.
What they're claiming is that they went 1,000 times farther than they can send astronauts today, 50 years ago, on the first attempt with 1/1,000th the computing power of a cell phone. I mean, when they flew across the Atlantic for the first time, a few years later, hundreds of aircraft and thousands of aircraft were flying across the Atlantic. When they went to the North Pole and South Pole here on Earth, they never made it the first attempt. It took multiple times. And so here we are 50 years later, and now the farthest they can send an astronaut to the moon is 1,000th the distance that they claimed to have done on the first attempt 50 years ago with less computing power than a cell phone, 1/1,000th of the computing power. It just doesn't add up.
Let's look at the photo. You say that's me? Okay, check out the name badge. It says Aldrin. Looks like you're right, but notice the helmet. Can you see my face? No. This is a secret I've been keeping for almost half a century. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and I pulled off humanity's first extraterrestrial prank.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest. It didn't happen. It could have been scary.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. Money is a good thing. If you want to buy new things, new rockets, instead of keep doing the same thing over, then it's going to cost more money. And other things need more money too. So having achieved what the president wanted us to do, and then what thousands, millions of people in America, and millions of people around the world. You know, when we toured around the world after we came back, the most fascinating observation was signs that said, we did it. Not just us, not just America, but we, the world, different countries. They felt like they were part of what we were able to do. And that made us feel very good.